I've criticized the FAMU run defense all year, but against the Southern Jaguars, I thought that unit performed pretty well. Oh, yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make a Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com to get started. And if you put down your first $5 bet, you get $200 back in bonus bets. So go to FanDuel.com to make every moment more. We'll wrap up today's episode with a look at what North Carolina Central head coach Trey Oliver called a dogfight, and one that was very necessary for the Eagles. In segment 2, we'll look at the statement made by South Carolina State, because I feel like it was a message not only to themselves, but to everybody else who was watching the game. And we kick it off with our game of the week, Southern versus FAMU. I think that the FAMU run defense performed pretty well. And honestly, I have to salute them, because I've criticized this unit a lot. I've blasted this unit a lot. And honestly, I think that this game came down to their ability to stop the run, because Southern couldn't get any offense going. And I think a big part of that had to do with the run game. And another big part of it had to do with the fact that quarterback play just wasn't good. It just was not good QB play, in my opinion. But you have to give credit to running the football, because bad quarterback play can be a little bit masked if you're looking at running the football, right? And I think that should have been the plan. But anywho, I've gone on and on and on at lengths about their inability to stop the run. I've done it against South Carolina State, against Jackson State, versus Norfolk State was when I started it, because that was the first game of the season, against Alabama State. Like, anytime you would hear me come on and preview a FAMU game, I would talk about their run defense. So much so that yesterday, or Friday, the last episode we did, I talked about how I knew I was beating a dead horse, but I continued to do it because it was that important. I thought that FAMU played as if it was that important. I felt as if FAMU rose to the occasion against a team that is not a great running team. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's not like Southern is phenomenal, but they are pretty persistent. They do have talent in the backfield, and they definitely could have got FAMU. That's something that didn't happen over the weekend. They did not get FAMU on the ground, because they were able to stop the triumvirate of Dillon, Russell, and Rhymes. Rhymes only had 5 carries, but both Dillon and Russell saw double-digit runs, right? And they both averaged 4 yards on the dot, but I don't think it was effective. They did not run the football that well. They didn't get any consistent offense. What they did do is they passed the ball with Noah Biden, who I am just not a fan of on the field. I don't think that he was accurate today. I remember highlighting Noah Biden's performance against Jackson State, because he was like bombs away. It was actually a very impressive performance by a quarterback that I wasn't looking for much out of, but it was a very impressive performance, and he showed a lot of downfield accuracy. Unfortunately for the Jaguars in this game, that downfield accuracy was not there. I think that he had a couple of throws that he should have made. I'm not saying they were wide open. Oh my God, how'd you miss? But they were clearly off target. He has some clearly off-target throws in that game. And FAMU set it up to where, hey, Southern, you're going to need to run the football, or you're going to need to pass the football a little bit more. Once you did that and you put the responsibility on the quarterback play, Biden eventually got taken out for teasing, but I think by that time you could tell it was too late. It wasn't points-wise. You couldn't see it was too late, but you could tell. You could feel it. It was one of those things where you had to actually be watching the game. It felt over very quickly. felt over in the second half. Let me say very quickly in the second half. Um, but you put the pressure on the quarterback to make plays. And I don't think that Biden was able to do it. And the only way that you're able to put the pressure on the quarterback and put the responsibility on him is for you to then stop the pass, stop the run. That's the only way. So you're looking at 4 yards a pop. That's pretty good. You'll take that. But at what point, and this is not rhetorical, and feel free to answer in the live chat. Feel free to answer in the comments. I'll see the comments forever. The live chat, I haven't figured out how to keep the live chat open once the live premiere is over. So if anybody knows how to do that, let me know. But I do not know how to keep the live chat open. Drop that in the comments for the record. Drop that in the comments because I'm going to need to go back to it once everything's over. But in general, you made them one-dimensional. There was no point in which Southern had consistent offense. That's what I was saying. Somebody let me know at what point you felt like Southern had consistent offense, because I don't feel like it ever happened. That FAMU secondary is solid, right? Like we talk about the front seven and everything, but I like the secondary. I think they have a solid team back there. Once you need Noah Biden to beat you against that secondary, I'm not going for it. I'm not taking Noah Biden over the FAMU secondary. It's just not happening. I don't think that's a smart bet. But let's also give it up for FAMU's run offense, right? Like we talk about FAMU's run defense, and they did a really good job. For the record, let's look at these averages before we move out of that. Whereas Southern's offense. Okay, so Southern's run offense is sixth in the conference, pretty middle of the pack, but they average 139 yards a game. FAMU's run defense was 10th and allowing 212 yards per game on the ground. Well, at the end of the day, Southern ended with 122 rushing yards, which is lower than their average. And also, if you look at what they've done very recently in SWAC play, 160s, 190s, like they've done much better recently. That 136, I don't think that tells or 139, excuse me, does not tell the full story of what they've been recently. For FAMU to hold them to 122, I'm very happy with that. Holding them to 122 is very impressive for the Southern Jaguars, for the FAMU Rattlers, in my opinion. But let's not forget about the FAMU rush offense. Their running game hasn't been that good either. They only average 88 yards per game. Southern allowed 159. I think that was also sixth in the conference, but it was a mixed bag for the Rattler running back room. You looking at Franklin with 40, Somerset with 39, Dean with 38. And yeah, it was just a quick countdown, but you look at them between the three, that's nearly 120 yards. So they're only looking at those three running backs, or looking at the three running backs that they have. You're looking at you got to look at the totality of them combined, because if you just say, oh, Somerset ran for 39, that's not that impressive. Dean just ran for 38. That's not that impressive. Franklin just ran for 40. That's not that impressive. But when you put them together and you get a 120 out of your three running backs, you will take that. You will accept that for sure. And they started running the football in the third quarter. That's the third quarter is when they really started putting the ball on the ground effectively, and that was their best running quarter of the day. So that was when they started extending the lead. That's when they started pulling away. You know, once you start pulling away, you can run the football a little bit, but also they know it's coming. So the fact that they were able to be that effective, I think that was a good sign. I like it. I want them to lean in. I think that these guys are talented. I've seen them make a couple of mistakes, but I don't think that having a couple of mistakes should really lead to you getting away from the run, unless you just want to get away from the run. And that's okay for your philosophy, but I do not think that's the best way to win in every game. I would love to see them get more touches. I would love to see them get more yards. I think that running the football would be very beneficial to FAMU and their team going throughout the rest of the season. Now, I want to push forward, and I want to look at South Carolina State, because to me, the Bulldogs made a statement this weekend with the way that they absolutely pulled out the belt and got to whipping Delaware State. But I'm not just going to detail it. I'm going to break it all the way down as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and FanDuel is the official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network. Today is Monday. I think if you're listening to this live, right, the 6:30 drop Central, you'll be able to catch all of the big time action. Today, I seen this on social media. You've seen this. You have NHL, the World Series, you have Monday Night Football, and you have NBA action all on one day. Oh my God. This is sports heaven. But you know what? You want to make it even better. You want to make it even better than go to FanDuel.com and put down a $5 bet if you're new to FanDuel.com. If you're new to FanDuel, you go ahead and put down a $5 bet and you get $200 back in bonus bets. So maybe you think that Freeman's going to knock another home run. How many people made money on a Jaden Daniels Hail Mary? Oh my God, I know somebody put some money on that. It's your chance to have that oh my gosh moment. But you have to go to FanDuel.com and get started. Make a $5 bet, get $200 back in bonus bets, and go to FanDuel.com and make every moment more. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On Saints. Ooh, things is getting ugly, but there's nobody I would want to be more informed by than Ross Jackson. So you go ahead and check out Locked On Saints and at him on Twitter at Ross Jackson, NOLA. I feel like I'm a part of the show with the way that I said it. Anywho, let's continue with my show, Locked On HBCU, which I'm very grateful that you are tuning in to. South Carolina State delivered a statement with the way that they beat Delaware State. There was no game that I think spoke greater volumes over the weekend than South Carolina State's absolute whipping of Delaware State. It was bad. And I know what you may be thinking. It's Delaware State. And I'll give you that. I don't think that Delaware State is that good. But here's what I did leading into the game. I labeled this a trap game. To me, this was the type of matchup that you overlook because you know you got North Carolina Central coming around the corner. That game's this Thursday on Halloween night, right? Like, I think that this is the type of game that you look over. So when I label this a trap game, I think that Chennis Berry said, yeah, no, we're not falling for the trap. That's exactly what I think it was. He came out and said, we understand this is a trap game, and we're not taking the cheese. Matter of fact, we are going to bombs away on you from the very first moment. The first play from scrimmage of the game, touchdown. I'm talking about short throw, pew, takeoff to the end zone. In the end zone, we having a party. And that just set the tone for the rest of the day. That set the tone for the rest of the day because you're looking at this South Carolina State offense and what they've been able to do recently. It's been explosive. I'm talking about an offense that they put up high points on North Carolina A&T. They've knocked up. South Carolina State is everything that we thought they could be. I think that's the beautiful thing about the Bulldogs. The South Carolina State Bulldogs in year one of the Chennis Berry era are everything we thought they could be. See, when we talk about teams and after we get through 8 weeks, right, we say, oh, they're everything we thought they would be. But when you're talking about a new head coach, you're looking forward, typically. But when it comes to the South Carolina State Bulldogs, I'm not looking forward. I'm looking in the present because they're everything I thought they could be in year 2, year 3. They're doing that in year 1. They're a legitimate player in the MEAC. And I think that's the statement. The statement is we are for real. Don't look towards the future. The statement is don't look towards the future. Look at the present. We're for real and we're ready for North Carolina Central, and we'll have them here at our home stadium on Thursday. I think that's the statement, to be honest. I really do. But they scored 69 points. They get nasty on the field, as my boy would say, right? Like this is an offensive performance that you should study. Play 1, touchdown. 49 points by the end of the first half. 69 points when it's all said and done. They played 3 quarterbacks and totaled up 5 incompletions on the day. They had the same amount of incompletions as passing touchdowns, right? You're looking at Eric Phoenix. He had 4 by himself. He totaled up another one on the ground to hit the big 5. You're looking at the backup quarterback comes in for a drive in the first half. He scores a touchdown, goes 5 for 5. You're looking at an offense that was absolutely explosive. 2 receivers over 100 yards, 1 receiver at 99. Justin Smith-Brown was a yard away from South Carolina State having 300-yard receivers. The offensive display that South Carolina State showcased in this week in the MEAC opener, I can't say enough about it. I can't wait to see how it translates throughout the rest of MEAC play as well, because this team has been on fire. It's not as if they were just coasting through. It's not as if they were just floating around. This team has been on absolute fire. And now they're going to have their biggest test of the season this Thursday. This is going to be a moment where the hype train either absolutely accelerates and hits full steam or it stops in its tracks. That's a tad bit unfair, but it is what it is. Offensively, they also have 5 touchdowns to 5 different receivers through the air. So they were spreading the love. They was loving a lot, and they were doing everything that they could. Defensively, I thought they had a good performance there too. And I understand that 35 points might not look that good, but that 35 points doesn't do anything for anything but the Delaware State averages at the end of the year, right? Like scoring 35 points in this game, the way they scored 35 points in this game. If you're really watching it, if you're really like, just crack open the box score and just see when the points happen. This ain't the most valid 35 as far as, excuse me. I'm not knocking the South Carolina State defense for allowing the 35. There's actually probably coaches who are through the roof that they allowed those 35 points because now it gives them something to kind of harp on during practice. I once heard that it's way more difficult to coach and how to coach a practice after a win opposed to coaching a practice after a loss. I think that though you won in a dominating fashion, you were allowed those 35 points to say, hey, defense, you got to get it together. I might not be the same thing to the offense. I don't know. You know what? Actually, you probably say you got to have better ball security because the 2 touchdowns that they scored in the first half, Delaware State scored in the first half, they both came off of turnovers, specifically fumbles via South Carolina State. One was on a muffed punt, and then one was on a strip sack. So, like, you're looking at these little things like, hey, we can't keep letting this happen. That's the conversations you're having as a coach to keep everybody hungry, to keep everybody motivated, because you don't want any of the players getting complacent. You don't want them reading the press clippings, as they say, right? But the truth of the matter is you have 14 points at halftime. The next 21 points were all scored in the fourth quarter. There was a drive that extended from the third to the fourth, but by the time that they scored another touchdown, it was 62-14. I'm sorry. I'm not giving any flack to the defense for allowing those 21 points when you were up 48. Are y'all hearing me right now? Like this is, I'm not knocking them for that. This is an absolute domination. To me, this was a statement victory by South Carolina State. And the statement is, we are a real player in the MEAC. If you didn't believe it already, it's time to believe it now. I think that we're ready for North Carolina Central. This is still me speaking as them, of course. And they're going to see them on Thursday night on Halloween. It's clear. Let me reset it so you understand exactly what is my words and what's not my words. The statement by South Carolina State is that they are completely players right now, not in the future, not Chennis Berry year 2, Chennis Berry year 3, but Chennis Berry year 1. We are legitimate players in the MEAC. If you didn't already recognize that from what we did out of conference, let me show you what we do to conference opponents. We pull out the belt. Now, this is me speaking. Now I can't wait until Thursday. This was like a trailer to a movie you already wanted to watch. Watching South Carolina State hang 69 on Delaware State was the trailer. I can't wait for the movie we're about to watch on Thursday night. Whew. This is football. Now, as we continue rolling, I got to look at the other team. Let's look at the other team, North Carolina Central. This is not how it was planned, but these are the 2 games that no, this is not the 2 games. This is the game that I was looking forward to the second most. We'll get into Howard and Norfolk State on tomorrow's episode, but we'll do this as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time, and Game Time is the only place I would send you for all of your ticket needs, right? If you're in the LA area, if you're in the New York area, it might not even make it to LA. I ain't gonna lie, it might not make it back to LA. Depending on how it goes, we might get the clean sweep for the Dodgers. But if you're in New York, go ahead and go to Game Time. Get you a ticket, right? It's the World Series. You don't want to miss it. Game 1 had a walk-off grand slam. These are moments that are going to go down in history, and you want to be there for it. And the only place to do that is to go to Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege. You get $20 off your first purchase. They have beautiful features such as all-in pricing. So there's no trickery, right? You ever be like, this has happened to me before, and then I started using Game Time, and it's never happened again. I went to go buy tickets. I've seen the price. Oh, I like that. I went to buy it, and now all of a sudden it's mad fees. But I'm already here. Like it's probably not gonna be any better anywhere else, or maybe I didn't see it. This is exactly what I hate about buying tickets online. And that's why I love Game Time, because they have all-in ticket prices where they tell you the fees up front. There is no hidden fees. Thank you very much. Go to Game Time, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. North Carolina Central wins an absolute slugfest against Morgan State, and I'm going to give you the quote that Trey Oliver had after the game, because he called it a dogfight. I called it a slugfest. He called it a dogfight. They cousins, man. Like, they're the same thing, to be honest. But he said, and I quote, "We need one or two of these dog fights to kind of test you." I agree. I think that this is a game that's good for building the mental fortitude. Like, I think this is a game for building the toughness. This is a game for shaping who you believe that you will be throughout the year and the ability to face adversity. And that's what I saw, because you're going against an elite defense. You're going against the one of the top best, or excuse me, one of the top best, one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the conference. And there was a couple of moments. There's 3 moments in particular where I think that North Carolina Central messed up, but then they responded very well. So you are the best offense, right? Like, that's how you feel. You feel like it's the best offense versus the best defense. But when you're going against a defense that good, you want to put points on the board. I was watching the Bengals versus Eagles game, and the Bengals' first drive, they drove down the field for about 10 minutes. It was a longer than 10-minute drive. And around minute 8, whoever the announcer was, I can't remember. For some reason, I think it was Romo, but that doesn't feel right, because I feel like I remember Romo calling a different game. But whoever the announcer was saying that basically, if you only get 3 points, Philadelphia is going to feel like this is a win, because long drives that don't amount to anything can feel demoralizing for an offense. I felt as if North Carolina Central went through that twice in the first half, right? On basically back-to-back possessions. It was 2 of 3 possessions. 2 of 3 possessions. So in that first one, you get down to the Morgan State 4. You get an explosive play. You really weren't moving. You had 3 punts, couple of 3-and-outs leading to that drive. But then you get down the field. You get down to the 4, and you get stalled out. You kick a field goal, Elijah Williams blocks it. Elijah Williams is an absolute beast. Oh, my God. Right? Like, I think only size is going to be the thing that hurts him. If they decide that, hey, this is the size he is, he gets down to it, and this guy's an absolute monster because he blocks the kick. Then they get down to the 26-yard line. You get down to the 26-yard line and you fumble. Come on now. Who you think fumbled it? Who you think forced the fumble? It was Elijah Williams. Like, right? Like this is a guy who is an impact player. And you're looking at the second half. I won't say he did it by himself, but I'm on the edge of saying, like, his contributions alone with those 2 plays, those are plays that he did. That was him. That's what kept this game close in the first half. I don't think that Morgan State is even in this game going into this third and fourth quarter if Elijah Williams does not make those plays. If Elijah Williams does not block that kick, that's 10-0. If Elijah Williams doesn't block that kick and force the fumble, that's 13-0 at the worst. And I think 13-0. I think 17-0. Or 13-0, 13-0, 17-0, right? I think that those scores feel a lot different than 7-0, because now it feels like the struggling offense is way out of their abilities, is way out of their range, and this game is pretty much over. But with it being 7-0 going into halftime, now it feels a lot closer. And that's Elijah Williams' doing. That's the reason that you were able to get that done. And then let's get into also on that fumble, you're actually able to move the ball pretty steadily. I saw really good things out of this offense. They moved the ball very well, better than I thought that they would. The 16 points does not properly evaluate how well they moved the ball, how well they ran the ball, right? Because they did have a blocked field goal. They did have a fumble in the red zone. You did have certain things. If you just get 3 points on that, you're looking at 22. And 22 points against a high-level defense feels a little bit different, right? Like it feels a little bit different, but either way, they were really moving the football. And my point is that they had a lot of adversity. The last piece of adversity that I want to share is when Walker Harris threw an interception, and that led to the first points of the day and the only points of the day by Morgan State. But it made it a 10-7 ball game. That was like, oh, okay, is momentum shifting? That was a point where easily momentum could shift. And what do? You come out and you get a touchdown by Jamari Taylor. This guy is phenomenal. Let's just get that out the way. Jamari Taylor is a football player, right? Like, and he is the engine of this team. He is the guy who makes everything go. At the end of the day, he makes everything go. And I think that for me, when watching him, he's rose to the occasion. He's rose to the conversations, or he's rose to the occasion and fulfilled the conversations that people had about him. When you talk about Mookie Collier leaving, I really do enjoy watching Jamari Taylor play. I think he has to be the front runner for Offensive Player of the Year, him and Eric Phoenix. I think so. Those have to be the front runners for MEAC Offensive Player of the Year. But he almost hit 200 yards in this game. He almost hit 200 yards in this game, man, against the second best run defense in the conference. Jamari Taylor hit 196 yards, averaging 7.5 a pop against the second best run defense in the conference. This is what he does. He did it against Alabama State. He's done it against Morgan State. Will he be able to do it against South Carolina State? Time will tell. But overall, you've seen a couple of slip-ups. Having the ability to drive down the field but not convert them into scores, period, can be very demoralizing. But you didn't let those moments get the best of you. Instead, North Carolina Central continued to fight, continued to rally. After that blocked field goal, they went down and scored a touchdown the next drive. After Walker Harris's interception that led to Morgan State scoring a touchdown, North Carolina Central answered with a touchdown right after. The adversity, the ability to face adversity, the ability to build your mental fortitude. This was the guy. This was the team, and Jamari Taylor was the guy. So on tomorrow's episode, we'll be looking at Alabama State because to me, the way the offense is playing, it's time to start talking about the Hornets again. Now, we're also having a special treat for you. Tomorrow afternoon, I have Diamond Johnson, Norfolk State women's basketball player, joining the show. So we're going to do our morning show, and then we're going to come back with a secondary episode, and it's the Diamond Johnson interview tomorrow evening. In the meantime, in between time, I can't wait to give that to you. Take care. Stay blessed. Peace.